mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about episode 4 of Apple TV's Dark Matter, entitled The Corridor. And this is an apt title, as last week we learned about the box, and this week we learned about the corridor. Aside from 2 issues, I thought this was a really strong episode. The show started to answer a lot of questions, and not just stuff like, what's in the box, but like also filling in holes from previous episodes. And I almost even hesitate to call these things holes because it's more like logistical stuff that I was just wondering about from previous episodes. Like, basically a lot of different aspects of the picture started to come into focus in this episode. I thought that was really great to see. Additionally, I really enjoyed the portion of the episode where Jason and Amanda were opening various doors and seeing different worlds. I was hoping the show would spend more time doing that sort of thing, but feels like we might be done with exploration now that the plot's getting a little bit more focused. I don't want to say I'm disappointed because I could be wrong, but I was really enjoying that portion. And I think I said in even episode 3, or after episode 3, that I was looking forward to them exploring worlds. So I hope they didn't confine it to this one episode, but it kind of feels like they might have. Also, both Laytons in this episode experience the box, but we never see what happens to either of them. We just see the aftermath. And I thought that was an interesting decision to make, especially because it was with that specific character. Like, every other time we've seen what happens. And I'm wondering if that was intentional or just like a stylistic choice or maybe even an editing choice, like for time. Like, they don't need to see that shit. It's not important. Either way, though, it got me thinking, and just something I'm keeping in the back of my head in case it becomes relevant later, which is actually gonna... I'm going to give that same thought when I talk about something else with Layton a little bit later. But all in all, I thought this was a really strong episode, the best of the season so far. And it's given me renewed confidence in the story that's going to unfold. And most importantly, it's given me some renewed confidence in the showrunner, who, if you recall from my first video, is also the author of the book. And the book didn't get the most glowing of reviews. So let's get into what happened in this episode and talk a little bit about what we learned. So this episode picks up right where the previous one left off, with Layton just outside the box, waiting for it to open again, and that terrible character, what's her name, Dawn, writhing in pain after losing her fingers. As soon as the box opens, Layton goes right in. We don't see him for the majority of the episode, but we see him, of course, utterly baffled at the corridor. He has no clue how it works. And when we rejoin him at the end of the episode, he's clearly tried a number of doors, but he's brutally damaged. Like, his foot's all fucked up. He looks like he's been in the middle of an MMA fight. He can't walk. The foot's like dragging behind him and shit. He can barely open doors. He's in rough shape. The biggest question this raises for me, though, is there just one corridor? So, for example, when Jason and Amanda go back into the corridor when they leave Chicago, will they see Layton in the corridor, or does he kind of like have his own corridor? I don't know, but that's a question I figure we're going to find out the answer to very quickly in episode 5. Also, given what we learned about how the doors work within the corridor, we have to figure that the more confusing and frustrated that Layton got, the worse the other side of the door got. So like I found that kind of interesting too, like how beaten up he was, to me suggested that he'd opened a lot of doors, and then also, again, given what we learned, they probably got a lot worse. Like, he probably started expecting all sorts of fucked up things, and he opens the door, that fucked up thing is right there. He probably imagined the police, and that's why it looks all fucked up. Anyway, the first of the 2 main plots of this episode revolve around OG Jason and Amanda going through the corridor and trying various doors. I'm really tired of saying corridor. It's a lot of syllables, and those letters run together. While this was the most entertaining portion of the episode, it also contained my 2 issues, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So Jason explains to Amanda that the corridor is basically a physical representation of what their minds can't comprehend, which is superposition. Every time they open the door, there's a drastically different world. The first one they actually try opens into some sort of bank. I'm sorry, not the first one they try, but the first one they actually proceed into, the first world that they actually try out, opens up into some sort of bank, it looks like, in a desolate world. This is the scene that you've seen in the trailers, and it's the one with them running and there's like buildings collapsing in the background, and I kind of wish we hadn't seen that in the trailer because it was pretty cool to watch in that moment, but I'd have been even more satisfied if I hadn't seen it before, and also if we had gotten more than that. But since that's all we got and not like a further exploration of that world, it really was just like, hey, let's go outside. Oh shit, buildings are falling. Let's go back. Like, it kind of sucks that the whole portion of that scene we got in the trailers. Like, I don't know. Kind of sucked. So I posed a question in an earlier video of where they would emerge when they enter a new world. I still don't know if like they go to open a door and a box kind of materializes in that space. I'm assuming it does. But we did learn that the box is in the exact same physical coordinates regardless of what is in the space at that time. So that's why when they opened the door, they were in that random bank and it was all fucked up looking and desolate and dusty and all that. Box is in the same place, but in this world, there is no velocity there. There's a bank. So, pretty simple concept. But some characters are going to struggle with simple concepts in this episode. I also wondered if, in this moment, if they have to inject themselves every time they want to go into the corridor. And if so, did Amanda bring enough vials? Because I'm kind of setting myself... I'm not looking to nitpick, but I'm trying to think of the things that they should be thinking of. But the show quickly answered both of those questions in the affirmative really fast. So that was pretty good. We also learned that they started with 50 vials and now they have 48. By the end of the episode, Jason has learned to control where they go. But at the end of the day, that still doesn't change the fact that they only have so many vials to do what they got to do. They got 24 more trips they could take and that's it. And I really hope we're almost out of vials comes into play. So now I want to talk about the first thing that irritated me. Hey everybody, I just want to take a small break from this review to talk about the various other ways you can engage with me on other platforms. If you're so inclined, and I understand why you wouldn't, I am an acquired taste, but you can join the Patreon where you can get extra content like retro reviews where I review old shows and movies to see if they still hold up today, Mike's Musings where I talk about shows I'm watching that I don't cover on the channel, or Mike's VOD where you can commission me to watch a show which I will then review on the channel. And if you want to engage with me and chat with me more directly, I also implore you to join the Discord and follow the Facebook page. I set up channels in the Discord for all of us to discuss the shows I'm reviewing on the channel, and I also drop new videos in there since it's the easiest platform for me to share to from my phone. The Facebook can be really fun because I sort of live comment on shows I'm watching, often while under the influence, I'm not going to lie. And I'll also share news there, both about television and film and about myself as well. So if you like my content, you want to be more engaged, you think I'm charming, or you simply want to show support, feel free to sign up for the Patreon or join the Discord or Facebook today. Links to all platforms are in every video description. Remember to share all my shit to your respective social media platforms. And now back to this review. Why is Alice so goddamn stupid? She's a psychologist at Velocity, right? How did someone that stupid presumably get a doctorate in that job? Like, she's like, if we keep walking, where does it end? It don't end, Alice. Like, that's what infinite means. He explained it to you already. Infinite possibilities means infinite doors means infinite corridor, you fucking idiot. Then later, she just takes off running and says, this has to end. No, it doesn't. It's infinite, Alice. God damn it. And then she's like, why are there all these fucked up... Why are there all these fucked up worlds? Because, god damn it, Amanda, every possibility exists. They are infinite. Fuck. Like, why was she so... Why was she so fucking dim? Like, she just could not understand the concept of infinite possibilities. And for a psychologist, that is very troubling. Explaining this to Amanda is basically, as her simple mind can understand, Jason says that there's a world where they never even entered the box. Shortly thereafter, he opens a door into a world that looks exactly like where they came from, but they see themselves, before they get into the box, caught by Leighton and Dawn and Amanda shot in the head. I wish we could have stayed in that world, but also of note in this scene, Leighton seems to see them, and I wonder if that's going to come into play as well. But here's like a concern I have. I kind of hope not, because this story needs to stay tight and not start crawling up its own ass like Westworld like to do by introducing too many versions of the same character and just getting too unnecessarily convoluted. Like, that's a big concern of mine, especially with so many episodes left. Like, it feels like we're going somewhere right now. I feel like I see the story. Obviously, I don't know where it's going, but like, I feel like I could kind of see a destination here. But this is 9 episodes, supposedly. That means there's still 5 left. That's a lot of time for them to unnecessarily overcomplicate this shit. And that's a big concern of mine. So after trying out a couple of more failed worlds, Amanda's dumbass says, "Fuck this," as if she had some brilliant idea that Jason had been shitting on the whole time. And she just blindly charges into one of the worlds and almost instantly freezes to death. And I'll immediately acknowledge that, regarding the plausibility of this, it felt like she froze way too fast. But I'm willing to allow it for such a stupid person to learn a lesson. After she ran out, I wrote in my notes, Jason should just let her die. She's a liability. Then 5 seconds later, he's carrying her over his shoulder to a cabin. I'm just like, oh my goodness. And I don't like the fucking generic damsel in distress character either. She's supposed to be a brilliant scientist or psychologist or whatever. They should be working together. She should not be a goddamn anchor with the fucking intellect that she's supposed to have and the experience that she has at Velocity. I don't like when shows or movies or books or whatever the fuck. I'm not trying to sound as woke as this is gonna sound, but disrespect women by continually making them these damsel in distress characters that only serve as a thorn in the paw of the male protagonist. And that's what Amanda felt like in this episode, and I fucking hate that shit. Whew. All right, so after Jason unfortunately brings Amanda back from the brink of death, he informs her that the box is gone, buried in the snow. I'm like, well, shit, you are truly fucked, sir, because that box is massive. So if there's so much snow that the box is covered and you can't see it, there's no way you can dig your way back in, even if you do find it. Well, folks, let me introduce you to issue number 2. How the fuck did they get back in that box? We better learn that bitch has a door on a roof, because otherwise they dug their way through 10 feet of snow at least. And not just digging down 10, 15 feet of snow to get to where you can, to get to the level of the door, but the space that you would have to make away from the door for you to be able to get down there and walk in. You can't just dig straight down. You gotta dig out too. There's no fucking way, man. That was ridiculous. But I do want to sandwich that insult with another compliment. I liked how they executed the realization that their minds can influence what's behind the doors. So in the cabin, while Amanda was, again, unfortunately, coming back to life, she shared a story of being stranded in a storm, and Jason puts together that she might have had that thought prior to her opening that door that led into this snowstorm world. Same as when they talked about the world where they never got into the box, and then they saw that. I like how they played it out before explaining it. It felt more like a genuine, I'm arriving at this conclusion based on what's happened, based on evidence, based on what all of us, the viewers, just saw, rather than him just kind of sitting there going oh, what if it's this? Oh, I have an idea. Maybe it's that, that feels like what a lesser show or a lesser writer would have done, just have Jason just kind of arrive at this conclusion for really hard thought. And I like how he arrived at it like a scientist based on evidence and based on what had happened. And I liked how it made those moments that felt random were retroactively changed to become relevant. And they were used to draw a pivotal conclusion. I thought that was well done and well executed. Amanda still took too long to understand that, though. She's like, I didn't choose this world. God damn it, Amanda. He didn't say you chose it. He said your subconscious can manifest it. You thought about something and then it created that world. He didn't say you chose it. Why is she so fucking dumb? So their storyline for this episode ends up back in the box with a conversation that I'm going to tie in with the episode's B-plot, and Amanda explaining to Jason that her Jason probably thought he was doing him a favor when he gave him a chance to be rich and wealthy and use all his science brain to be important. He's just gonna steal his family in exchange. And then understandably, Jason's devastated. He's like, oh, he's gonna steal my family? Weak, bro. Yeah, sorry, Jason. But again, though, I did like retroactively that these scenes ended up mattering more than I thought they did at the time. So in my notes, I wrote down okay, wow, how many examples of new Jason being different in OG Jason's world are we going to have before we start moving this plot along? So obviously I've transitioned to talking about the B plot, which is new Jason in OG Jason's world. And I'm just like, okay, so you're teaching your kid how to be a shitty driver and you quit OG Jason's teaching job. Okay, stop doing stuff that OG Jason didn't do and let's start moving this plot forward. But as the episode progresses, the purpose of those scenes becomes a lot clearer. For instance, in the driving scene, before Jason tells his kid to like bust that right into traffic, he asks Charlie, how he wants to celebrate his birthday, and Charlie says the usual way. The fact that Jason didn't know what the fuck the usual way was came into play later, even though that conversation or that moment, I would say it felt inconsequential because you could tell in Charlie's face that he was kind of like you know what we doing. But I didn't brush it off, but it's still, I didn't look at it as like that pivotal of a moment. But it ends up being monumentally pivotal later. New Jason quits, like I said, OG Jason's job as a teacher because kids don't have notebooks anymore. He goes to visit the Leighton in this world, who is apparently just kind of like a wealthy bum who lives off of his father. He also seems to be gay, which I wouldn't think that would matter, but they did seem to go out of their way to show us that he was gay by showing that like naked guy leaving the room and Leighton making a face like, yeah, I hit that. I don't know if that's gonna matter or if that's just meant to kind of like, I don't know, help us understand something more about this Leighton's character. I don't know. I feel like it felt very inconsequential, but again, I've talked in this episode already about how stuff that felt inconsequential ended up mattering later. Maybe they'll have to figure out which Leighton is which and have to do a really X-rated test to figure that out. I don't know, but I do wonder if it'll matter later. So New Jason takes Leighton to the box, and of note here, they drink the drug rather than inject it, and they don't pass out or anything like that. So New Jason clearly has a lot more knowledge of how this works, which we already knew that, but he has greater control over moving in between worlds, and his way of utilizing the box is more advanced than what Amanda and OG Jason are doing, which is interesting because Amanda should have whatever the same thing that he has. She should be able to have something that they can drink as well. So I don't know why that isn't the case. But like I said, New Jason, he clearly has greater control over the ability to utilize the box, and that even kind of answered a question that I had about a scene in episode 1 where Jason is in that storage unit and he's writing down that Charlie drove today, and I was like, that can't be OG Jason because why would he need to write that down? He was there, but also at the same time, we hadn't even met New Jason yet, and I was like, okay, well, if that's the guy who comes over and kidnaps our Jason, why was he writing that down beforehand? How would he have even known that Charlie had drove that way? But I think it's kind of clear now that New Jason has been utilizing the box already, I think, and kind of like going back and forth and doing recon. I think that's pretty interesting. I'm not 100% on that, but I feel like that's the case. But like I said, I'm not 100% on what happens with the box either. There are some things that I'm not going to say I'm willing to let go, but I'm comfortable enough in the conclusion that I've drawn to not like hold it against the show. So after Jason is done selling Leighton on investing in the box, he returns home to what I was hoping was going to be the scene of the century. While he was gone, we learned that they have a tradition, they being, him, Daniela, and Charlie, of sitting near a tree in their backyard that they planted along with some of Max's ashes on their birthday. New Jason wouldn't know anything about that. I thought for sure he was going to get ripped to shreds, but just as Charlie and Daniela are about to discuss how different he's been behaving, he comes home with flowers for Daniela and a car for Charlie, and the news about quitting his job and gaining an investor in Leighton. What's interesting to me here is the purpose for New Jason's visit. When I mean visit, I mean his visit to OG Jason's world, and how it ties back to the scene where he quit OG Jason's job. Like, supposedly, we're to believe that New Jason is unfulfilled in his world with being a rich and famous scientist, and he regretted not settling down with Daniela and starting a family. Yet here we are, not too long into his new life, and he's already quit his teaching job and is looking into going into business with Leighton. Like, is that meant to reflect that, like, you really just are who you are, and that he's someone who's always going to have that always has that drive for success? He's always going to have to, be the best at science and new technology and advancing new shit. Like, is he just invariably going to be that? Like, he thought the grass was greener on the other side. Like, oh, I want to have this family. But he's going to get increasingly bored with the family life and start to do the same things in this world and have the same issues in this world that he had in his own. I find that pretty interesting to explore. Again, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it made me wonder. But then at the same time, he also encourages Daniela to quit her job and pick back up painting. So he's not totally on some, like, let's get wealthy business, tech type shit. He's doing that for himself, but also doing it so that she doesn't have to work anymore and can explore the things that she's passionate about. So I'm interested in learning more about new Jason's motivations and what his intentions are going forward. So that's all I got. I'm going to wrap up right here. But again, I thought this was a really strong episode. I had a couple of issues, but they didn't impact my overall enjoyment of the episode. I loved what we learned. I loved going into multiple worlds. I thought they tightened the plot up. It looks like it has it looks like it has a focus now, like it's going somewhere. So I'm really excited to see what they have for these last 5 episodes. Let me know what you thought in the comments, and until next week, peace.